Live, live from a studio apartment. This is Misinformation. I'm a little bit discombobulated tonight. Hold on, I'll get it together. What's up, everyone? Bed's dirty. There's crap all over the bed. I got no backdrop. Jeez. I just got back from jiu-jitsu. So I was doing that for like an hour and a half earlier. And I'm not used to jiu-jitsu. I haven't been taking it. Like, I took a long break and then I just got back into it. And it is terrible. Terrible getting back into jiu-jitsu shape. It's just, I got heartburn in there. I'm rolling around with people. I got heartburn going on. I didn't even eat anything. Just somehow my body's reaction to effort. So, anyways, we got a good show tonight. We're going to talk about a couple things breaking. So, main story we'll get into is the Lindsay Clancy murder trial. You guys have probably heard about this. The woman that murdered her 3 kids, and her defense basically claiming that she was on a mix of SSRIs and other types of psychiatric drugs that she's basically blaming the murders on, apparently, and trying to get off. So we'll kind of get into that. I'll give you my thoughts. There's big news in the Candace Owens, Tyler Robinson. There was the big debate coming up this Friday. Still is on, I guess. But we found out today we had a release from the defense team filed like their response to the preliminary hearing. And so that kind of changes things. We'll get into that stuff and what it means for the trial. And then the former CFO, that's like the chief financial officer of the Southern Poverty Law Center, that's the SPLC, was arrested by the DOJ. This is big news because it basically kind of exposed what we were all thinking, which is that all of the Unite the Right rally, all of the crazy big racist MAGA racist events that you saw over the last several years were fake, basically, and funded by the SPLC. I don't know why this camera's not. I just want it to be at a better angle, but okay, whatever. Good enough. Okay, so where should we start here? Well, let's check TikTok, actually. Let's see if anybody's chilling. My coffee. What's up, Cam? What's up, Steve Villalobos? 779. You really needed the 779. There were 778 other Steve Villa. He left. He was like, fuck this. I won't mention anyone by name anymore. No one wants to be associated with watching this show, I see. That's fine. So, let's take a look at the Lindsay Clancy, the Lindsay Clancy murder case, I guess. Let me pull it up here on Twitter. So we can sort of start here. This is, should I pull up a little bit of background? Let's kind of pull this up. Matt Walsh was talking about this earlier today. That's what's kind of got everyone revisiting it and talking about it again. He says, we're talking about the Lindsay Clancy case on the show today. I've gone deep into the rabbit hole of psychotic women on the internet who are rallying to Clancy's defense, and in some cases outright exalting and celebrating her after she strangled all 3 of her children to death. This case is like the female equivalent of black activists defending Carmelo Anthony. Really dark stuff. There's a deep sickness in our culture. So, if you're not aware, Lindsay Clancy, I think this is a pretty high profile case though. She's this, no, that's not her. She's this lady here. Sobbing in court. I think this is when they were going over details of the autopsy of her daughter. So supposedly she was a woman. I guess she was a delivery nurse too, which I didn't realize until just today. She's a delivery nurse. She had recently given birth. She had 3 kids. I guess they were all really young. And she'd been experiencing some postpartum depression, right? Which led to anxiety, what she described as some psychotic symptoms. There were like auditory hallucinations and things like that. She had been going in for treatment in the months prior to the murders that ended up taking place. And she had been put on a huge mix, apparently, of antidepressants, anti anxiety drugs, some antipsychotics, I think, a big mix of drugs, which basically she says led to her eventually, it's a horrible case. She strangled all 3 of her children. She basically like got everyone to leave the house. So seems somewhat premeditated. Strangled all 3 of her children, then tried to take her own life, jumped out of a bedroom window. I think it was a 2-story fall, ended up paralyzing herself. So now she's paralyzed, and now she is in court, and her defense is basically arguing that it was medical malpractice. So she was put on this mix of drugs, which led her to this psychotic, borderline psychotic state in which she murdered her 3 children and tried to take her own life, right? So that is the fundamental question we have with some women, not all certainly, but some women online coming to her defense saying, hey, they've had postpartum depression, they've gotten treatment before, and basically pointing to the mix of medications that she was on in the lead up to this as being a possible excuse or reason for the murders. So here's a psychiatrist, a pharmacist rather, going over the mix of medications that she was on at the time.
As a pharmacist, I have to comment on the Lindsay Clancy case. This is her timeline of events of the 13 psychiatric medications that she was given. You can tell this is written by somebody who does not have a medical background. So here we go. October 2022, psychiatrist starts her on 25 milligrams of Zoloft. Within days, it's doubled to 50. So dramatic. Calm down. That's normal. So far, this is fine. She reports she hasn't slept in 48 hours. Racing thoughts, worsening anxiety. Red flag. This was missed. 100% missed. If an SSRI causes, that is your red flag for mania. Now she's reporting heart palpitations. She says her mental health is getting worse. They take her off the Zoloft and prescribe Ativan and Benadryl. That's wild. So far, the first part, giving someone Zoloft right off the bat, totally reasonable. Legit. I'm on board. Right after that, Ativan and Benadryl. That's insane right there. Like a benzodiazepine and a sedating first-gen antihistamine for sleep when we're not treating the underlying cause, which is hypomania. November 16th, now she goes to the ER with insomnia, anxiety, and heart palpitations. This is severe. She's sent home with trazodone. Now, this is not a terrible choice right off the bat as far as like if she had insomnia and anxiety, that could be reasonable, but also the red flag was missed earlier that this could be hypomania and it's turning into mania. Now here's where they portray it as doctor shopping, and that just makes me mad because this is where her mother-in-law recommends a perinatal behavioral health program. Great. You know what? You need a specialist. In this case, you need a specialist. Great job advocating for your own behalf. She tells them she's frustrated, scared, extreme insomnia, and racing thoughts. At this point, hospitalization is probably warranted, if not previously. Instead, they prescribe Prozac, another SSRI. What do you know? It makes her insomnia worse. So here's where things get fucking crazy. They add Ambien, Remeron, and Klonopin.
I'm going to stop you right there. As an ex-drug addict, I can tell you she's right. All that shit is crazy. I know she's a pharmacist, but I feel like I'm the expert here. Ambien, first of all, will straight up make you hallucinate. So Ambien, if you're not aware, that's like the sleep drug, but really it's almost like alcohol. What's the difference? So like alcohol, you will take it and your physical manifestations of being drunk will start to manifest before the mental ones do, right? So if you have too many drinks, you get drunk, you'll start to stagger and stuff. And then like after that, you'll start to get all stupid and like slur and do all these other things. Your thoughts will get dumber, right? But it actually starts with alcohol with a physical manifestation. Ambien's the opposite of that, where if you take one of those, your brain gets really messed up, but physically you're fine. You're walking around. That's why people who take Ambien or abuse it will like sleepwalk and do a bunch of weird stuff because their gait is fine. They have perfect balance. The physicality is all there, but mentally they're like an inebriated person. But there was a brief period of time where I took that stuff, and I remember you would literally just visually hallucinate on it because you'd start to fall asleep, and you wouldn't. It was like you were awake dreaming. It was a trip. So that's weird. The other thing she's describing too, there was also like, I mean, both the Zoloft or the antidepressant and the anti-anxiety drugs, I just feel like those drugs are way stronger and way more dangerous than people realize for the amount that they're prescribed. And certainly in this case, with all of those drugs being prescribed in overlapping sort of periods, that does raise a huge red flag to me. I remember I was depressed one time. I tried an antidepressant. I forget which one it was, but it was like a dopamine agonist one. It's like a weird antidepressant. I was on it for maybe 3 days, and I remember, maybe it was like 5 days or something, but I remember like after a couple days it wasn't working, so the doctor was like, oh, you got to double the dose, just like it's saying they did with her. And I remember like I walked into work, and I had like the urge to just jump in the pool because I worked in an apartment complex, and I was like, it'd be really great to just jump in that pool right now, like in my full suit. So it's a drug, you know, it messes you up, and I immediately got off of it. I was like, yeah, no thanks. I don't need every. I was real happy. I would have been excited to have jumped in the pool, but I was like, yeah, this isn't good, right? Then Klonopin is an anti-anxiety drug, right? But Klonopin and anti-anxiety drugs like it can often cause what are called paradoxical reactions. You guys remember the lady who had the pet chimp and it ate her face off? You guys remember that story? It's from a couple of years ago? Yeah, well, because she was giving it Klonopin or Xanax. They're basically the same thing, just one's longer acting. But she was giving it an anti-anxiety drug, a benzodiazepine, to try to calm its behavior. And it ended up provoking a paradoxical reaction where the chimp actually became more aggressive and more anxious, more agitated while on that drug. So these drugs that psychiatrists prescribe, number one, they don't even know how they work a lot of the time, with antidepressants in particular. They thought it was a whole like serotonin response thing. That's a guess. They don't really know exactly why it helps some people, why it doesn't help others, right? Don't generally know how it works. Oftentimes these drugs, as a side effect, will list the opposite reaction of what it's supposed to cause. So a paradoxical reaction to antidepressants could be increased depression. A paradoxical reaction to anti-anxiety drugs could be increased anxiety and agitation. Ambien can cause sleepwalking, right? And so you have this woman on all these things. I'll let this pharmacist continue a little bit, but I just wanted to give a little context there too, from a drug addict.
Ma'am, she needs to care for a child, a baby, and a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. This would snow any person. Not to mention, like, the hallucinations with Ambien alone. You add Remeron, mirtazapine on top of that. And Klonopin, long-acting benzo, that's crazy. It's also like, does she still have access to the Ativan at this point? And what do you know? The very next day, she tells the practitioner, unable to determine what's real, disoriented, forgetful, confused, disconnected. No kidding. Again, right here, hospitalization. This should have been hospitalized. November 28, she's getting 3 hours of sleep. She is disoriented and scared. Finally, this is where they prescribe her Seroquel, which is like almost the right choice, but at this point, it's almost too late. Her husband testified that this is where her big spiral started, probably because she's been on all of these other medications. It's already snowballed things. She needs intensive inpatient psychiatric care. So this is where she reports she is hearing things. Again, is it from the Seroquel, or is it from, I would suspect the other ones, if anything, if she had underlying undiagnosed bipolar disorder, this is probably helping with that. But
Probably a lot of stuff. I would be surprised if you gave any person that amount of drugs over that amount of time and they weren't hearing auditory hallucinations. Right? So, I mean, I get what people are saying when they're saying, you know, there is some responsibility for all these drugs that she was taking, you know. Here was my sort of response to, let me see if I can find it, Matt Walsh. Well, I'll read you my reply to him, and then we'll kind of give you my take. So he says, Lindsay Clancy tried to get help. Yes, and her children needed help too when she was methodically strangling them to death in the basement. The sympathy for this woman is just unspeakably depraved. Total callousness towards the children she slaughtered. And then I add here, in the same way that the parents of school shooters should also be prosecuted, we should hold the medical staff accountable when they overprescribe psych meds without appropriate safeguards. So that is my thinking, which I go on to say as well, you can still and must hold her accountable for her actions, even if you believe they were fully or partially caused by the meds. But you should then also hold the doctors accountable for their role. So the tough thing about this to me is we live in a society with consequences, right? To me, it's unfortunate, even if these medications did lead her to a state of psychosis, did contribute, how much did it contribute to these murders? Was it 60%? Was it 90%? We don't know, right? But the fact remains that she took those actions, right? She did those actions, and she has to face justice for it. If for no other reason, the reason that we have to enforce the law that you can't just murder your kids, right? And if somebody's able to walk by just saying they were on a bunch of medications, then anybody could walk by doing that, right? So whether or not you think it's right or wrong, to me, I think she has to be punished. She has to face justice for this. But that doesn't mean we can't advocate for holding physicians accountable to the same standards that we would hold the neglect of a parent of a school shooter to, right? It's the same situation to me. You're putting someone in a dangerous position or giving them something dangerous that they don't have full control over, and you're not being the supervisory expert that you should be. And to me, physicians overprescribe these things all the time. Basically, especially with females, but also like me whenever I go into a doctor, I've gone into a doctor for like physical pain or something, like a knee injury or an ankle problem, and the doctor will be like, at the end of the visit, they'll be like, yeah, okay, everything else good? You feeling depressed at all? And like every time, right? And I'm like, I am a little depressed, first of all, so I'm like, meh, a little bit, but I'm fine. And they'll almost always be like, oh, well, let me know if that gets worse, because I can just prescribe you a little antidepressant to help, and this is the one I recommend. And the reason they do that is because they all get kickbacks from the companies who send reps to their offices to try to get them to push their antidepressant drugs, right? So when you have these medical incentives for doctors to push certain drugs, and they get kickbacks from these little carriers that they work with on all these little things, you're going to get an overprescribed public. And the only way to monitor a person like this who's on this amount of drugs would really be inpatient therapy, right? My understanding of her is she did go in and try to get evaluated, but she may have said at certain points during the intake that she wasn't psychotic or wasn't experiencing hallucinations, right? So it's a tricky case, you know, where's the line between, like, you know, she needs to be inpatient or a person's responsibilities or a person's rights, right? You know, because they basically would have had to just put her in there against her will. But she also had a husband and, you know, a support network who could have gotten her appropriate treatment as well. So anyways, that's my thinking. Here was someone on X earlier today. saying, I know people who were unable to get an appointment with a psychiatrist, and it saved their life. Some believe it was divine intervention. Don't for a second buy the propaganda that access to mental health care is the greatest barrier to recovery. Entering the mental health industrial complex as currently constructed predicts lifelong disability more than recovery. I agree with that 100%, by the way. Barriers to effective help are problematic. It's just that effective care is rare. The whole system needs to be burnt down and rebuilt. This really means something to me because, I mentioned it earlier as I was discussing this stuff, but I am an addict, an ex-addict, I would say, but always recovering addict, right? And if you really truly recover from something like that without, like, you have to do it the hard way, which means you can't just go in and go, oh, I'm giving up alcohol or I'm giving up painkillers or whatever it is that I've been on every single day and using for a decade or whatever, and just say, I'll just swap them with antidepressant. Oh, well, now that I quit the alcohol, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. So, I'm sober now, but I did get a 10 milligram dose of Klonopin or whatever that I take daily. It's the same thing, right? Just in pill form. So there's a phrase that addicts have, which is you need to, in order to get to the other side, from here in this bad place that you're at to where you want to go, you have to be willing to walk through the fire, right? You have to be willing to do the hard stuff. Even when you're having anxiety, you got to still go out into the world. You got to still go do what you need to do, even with that anxiety, right? You can't bury it because that's what you've been doing with the drugs. And so many people, to my eye, especially females, are, they go into the doctor, into this medical industrial complex, and they're told that they don't have to do the hard way at all, that basically they can remove any symptoms of anxiety or depression with just this little magic pill, And so women will go on antidepressants, they will go on Klonopin as a lifelong treatment plan, not understanding the risks involved with those types of things. And it's tough because honestly, most people will, if given the choice between hard work and experiencing that anxiety and walking through it versus the promise of a pill, they're going to take the easy road. So to get them to do it the right way, you really have to, number one, not have an incentivized medical system that's pushing this stuff as being like the solution. You have a problem, you have a disease, and this pill will fix it. And then number two, you need to have really stronger health structures in place to get the people the appropriate treatment that they need to walk through their anxiety on their own, to walk through depression on their own, and figure out maybe what's the underlying cause of that, right? If you're depressed, what does that mean? You're sad. Why do you get sad? Probably because, just in the same way that when you put your hand on a stove burner and nature has a built-in mechanism to tell you, hey, that's hot, get your hand off that, you're probably not happy with something that's going on in your life, and you probably need to address that and change it, right? And a pill, I could put my hand on a stove burner and take a painkiller. It's not going to make the problem go away. It's just going to mask the pain, right? So yeah, it's a big problem, but with this particular case, from what I know of it, both she, Lindsay, Clancy, and the doctors overprescribing the drugs should be held accountable. Okay, what else we got? This was, so Candace Owens has her big debate with Andrew Wilson, that's Andrew right here, coming up on Friday. And wouldn't you know it, just today, the defense team, Tyler Robinson's defense team, released a filing. This comes after the pretrial hearing has concluded. This hasn't even been the trial so far. It's just the pretrial evidence that was introduced. And apparently the defense filing basically totally admits that Tyler Robinson didn't. It didn't really admit that he did it. They didn't file a guilty plea or anything like that. But it's basically saying things like, hey, we have him on video with a rifle in his pants, and he had the rifle in his pants. And so they're not even trying to defend him and say he didn't do it or that it was an exploding Israeli microphone. They're straight up saying hey, he went and shot Charlie Kirk, but he only shot one person. He didn't intend to hurt other people, so he shouldn't get the death penalty. That's essentially the gist of their defense. So this comes like literally 2 days before Candace Owens is supposed to get up and debate Andrew Wilson, which he's paying her $300,000 for, to answer to all of her crazy claims about who done it with regards to Tyler Robinson. Misinformation, actually, we got a video of Candace Owens and some of her investigations. You guys can watch it right here.
Thanks for calling me in, guys. With my help, we'll get to the bottom of this conspiracy.
Actually, we're not sure why you're here.
Because Charlie was my best friend. He'd only trust me to solve his murder. Aha! Just as I suspected. Egyptian hieroglyphs. I knew the Egyptians were involved.
That's just Spanish. I think you're misinterpreting the data.
She's right, gang.
There's no way anyone could have taken that shot. It must have been an exploding microphone triggered by a signal under the Jewish trapdoor.
I think it was that guy.
Just as I suspected. Time to find out the real killer of Charlie Kirk.
Ow, stop, please! Candace, stop! That's his real face! Roll, crazy bitch!
Candace, stop!
Who are you?
I'm the ghost of your last conspiracy theory, Macron's wife.
To be fair, I can kind of see that one a little.
Like, really, Velmo?
Candace, don't you see? He killed Charlie Kirk because he didn't understand him. The real killer of Charlie Kirk was ignorance. And now you're being ignorant.
Time to find out what you really are!
Zoinks! That's S.A.!
Yeah, few people know that she actually worked with Scooby-Doo and the gang on a lot of those claims. I kid, of course. I still have heartburn from the jiu-jitsu. Not even joking. I need to get in better shape rapidly to continue with jiu-jitsu. Oh my gosh. So yeah, this is Andrew Wilson saying picked a hell of a week. This is Rakita Law, who says they skimmed the filing. Tyler Robinson defense is on absolute life support. Shockingly, the defense isn't using any of the arguments from Candace Owens or Baron Coleman. I don't even know who that is. It's so weird that the defense isn't using their obvious ironclad theories. The cope will be marvelous. Let me see if I can find some other stuff from this. Here's 0 Hour saying that this is a little snippet apparently from the filing, where he's saying that Tyler Robinson admitted he had a fully assembled rifle. His defense wrote this: the video evidence shows Mr. Robinson walking up and down stairs at UVU with a gait impaired by something long in his pant leg. It was a fully assembled rifle. So the defense there apparently admitting that he had a fully assembled rifle hidden in his pants. Here was Brandon Tatum talking about his observation. He was in the courtroom. Candace, of course, released what many are calling a very janky, stretched video of the Tyler Robinson video that was shown in court, which she is claiming looks like a different guy than Tyler Robinson. Here's Brandon Tatum's take on what he saw.
Tyler Robinson thing is like grinding my gears. I saw a video that Candace Owens put out that said that this was a video or something of Tyler Robinson in the parking garage. That I don't know where she got it from, but it ain't real. It ain't real. I was in the courtroom. Tyler Robinson's mama said, that's him. His daddy said, that's him. His boyfriend said, that's him. He confessed to his boyfriend, his mama, on the Discord channel, it was me. What the are we talking about? And then we got updates. The defense is not even arguing about this. They didn't argue in the court that it was entered into evidence with no objections from the defense. They didn't say this was a fake clip while they played the clip of their client in front of the whole courtroom. They accepted the clip as authentic. Some people claim they want justice more than Tyler Robinson's mama and them. They want him to get off, and his mama and them told on him. All right, come on, play the interview.
So it's pretty funny. That, I mean, to me is one of the more obvious points of the case, is that his mom, his father, his trans boyfriend all seemed to indicate that he had confessed to them and that they could see it was him in the videos. He goes into a Discord online, the group of the tranny Discord, and he announces to them, they have these records from Tyler Robinson in court, hey, it was me, I did the Charlie Kirk shooting. Like, it's crazy, right? But, you know, like I've said before, Candace Owens hosts a really fun to watch murder mystery show. And who doesn't love a good murder mystery show? So to me, it's fan fiction, very obviously so. Andrew Wilson, he's the guy who's paying her the $300,000 for the debate, which I've said the way he set it up was just totally stupid. He paid her first, announced the debate was happening, then created a Give, Send, Go fundraiser to essentially recoup his losses for the debate, when what he easily should have done is said, hey, I'll give you the $300,000, but I want to fundraise for it first, you know, work it out behind the scenes. Give me 2 weeks. Once I secure it, I will deliver a payment. He could have done that easily and made money off of this thing and just told the audience, look, the debate can only happen if I raise this amount of money. Instead, he hosts the debate and then goes to raise it. I think his Give, Send, Go is up to like $60K so far of the proposed $300,000. So it does undermine my faith in Andrew Wilson a little bit that he's structured this so poorly for himself. But in any case, this is Candace mocking him. She's mocking his Give, Send, Go, saying, this is the equivalent of a wealthy person purchasing themselves a completely unnecessary luxury Aston Martin and then immediately publishing a GoFundMe to ask blue-collar workers to pay for it. It is kind of true. He did just splurge on the debate. I was financially irresponsible because I wanted to look cool on Joe Rogan. Here's why you should pay for it. It's honestly shameless. I don't think it's shameless. I just think he got a little bit ahead of himself. And I think he probably thought that he could easily get the $300,000. I just think the way he structured it with setting up the debate first, I think he was more concerned with securing the debate than with securing the money, you know. So hopefully it works out for him, but I don't think he's going to reach 300K by Friday. And then once the debate happens, nobody's going to pay him anything. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see on Friday how Candace responds to the defense filing. She has canceled her show for today. Apparently didn't go live, as far as I know. She'd said she was canceling her show because she claims that she doesn't want to give away her response to Andrew Wilson with the big debate coming up. More likely, her butthole has completely puckered, and she doesn't know what she's going to say now that the defense has essentially trashed all of her claims. Not trashed her claims, but basically admitted that they're just trying to, that he shot Charlie Kirk and they're just trying to knock him the death penalty. That's a tough one to spin. Here's Nick Fuentes has been commenting on this. He says it's immoral and ridiculous for Candace Owens to accept the $300,000 to debate Andrew Wilson. Here's him talking about it.
I don't even know who that is.
Kate Butkowski was right, sent $20. Alice Anna sent $20. What kind of best good friend accepts $300,000 to debate someone about their BFF's assassination anyway? No one has morals anymore.
Basically.
She should at least give the money to his children.
Yeah, she shouldn't take the money. That's insane. You just can't take the money on its face. You know, what a bad look that is. You're a multi-millionaire. Like, you have to know that she's loaded. The viewership that she gets, the ad money, the ad reads that she makes on the show, the super chats, the subscriptions, she's probably got to be clearing $1 million a month, would be my guess. I mean, something like that. Probably between $500,000, maybe $1 million a month. Between the AdSense, the ad reads, which she does multiple per show, the subscriptions on the Candace Owens site, I think she does merch. That's got to be like, I mean, we're talking maybe $500,000, $1 million, maybe more every month. To take the $300,000 and you just can't do it. Because it can't be about the truth and avenging your dead friend and also the money. It just can't.
I mean, I understand what he's saying. I do see Candace's perspective, which is she didn't ask for any of this, right? She was challenged to a debate. Andrew Wilson was the one who threw out the number, hey, I'll pay you $300,000 to come debate me. She doesn't need to do it, you know. Could ruin her show, theoretically, right? So it makes sense to me that she would accept the $300,000 to do the debate. Is it morally right for her to do that? Of course not. Particularly if she's saying she's the best friend of Charlie Kirk, wants to, you know, somehow avenge his death or find the true killer, support him and his family, and instead she's trashing his wife. She's making all these ridiculous claims and then just taking $300,000 for herself to debate her ridiculous claims. Like, that's pretty crazy. But then at the same time, I feel like she's definitely not going to donate it to them, I don't think, because she doesn't have a good relationship with Erica Kirk or the family or anything like that. Certainly not now. I think the right move is if you're not going to donate it, she should have just not accepted the $300,000 and not done the debate. Because it makes sense to me, if she's going to go do it, she needs to get paid something along those lines. That is her worth. But if it's morally wrong, she should have just walked away and been like, no, I can't accept money for this type of debate, and I don't want to, besmirch my dead friend's name, so I'm just not going to do it. Right? If you're not going to donate it or anything. So, I'll be watching, though. Looks like it'll be good. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, this was a big story from today. So we had an update a month or so ago, 2 months ago maybe. We heard that the DOJ was investigating SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I believe some indictments were being handed down. So what they found was that the SPLC, while claiming to fight racism, was actually taking donor money and then funneling that money through various shell entities and fake corporations to fund racist activities. In other words, they were funding informants that were part of racist groups that theoretically were organizing events, that theoretically were informing the SPLC, but basically staging racist protests. So for forever now, the right has looked at events like Patriot Front, has looked at events like the Unite the Right rally, where all of a sudden all these white dudes show up with tiki torches, like very KKK aesthetic for no apparent reason, right? If you're going to be a white supremacist, why harken back to the KKK? You don't need to do all that, right? Just show up and do your thing, whatever. Keep it low key, the white supremacy, right? But no, these guys had the tiki torches and everything. Very obvious show of white supremacist neo-Nazi racism, right? And the right for forever has said, hey, this is fake. It's being funded. It is being put in place. And so this evidence was the first time that we saw an actual organization, the Southern Poverty Law Center, was called out. They actually found the shell companies and the payments that were being made to fund some of these racist activities, right? Hate groups. This is the lady here. She's the former CFO. That's the chief financial officer of the company. So she today was arrested. So it looks like they're not just bringing these charges out or creating a news story about it. They're actually pursuing prosecutions against the people involved. This I thought was interesting. It's an actual article about the case on CNN. Oh my God, come on. Really? Really? I wonder if they deleted that. You know what's funny is it must have been a tweet from CNN about the case. And I highlighted it specifically because I was like, well, if CNN's reporting it, that's kind of interesting. They're sort of a leftist outlet. Kind of adds credibility to it. But it looks like they may have just deleted the tweet. Right? I'll see if I can find it in an internet search, but probably not. Let's do this. This might be it. Maybe they just deleted the tweet. Here's they got exclusive former employee at Southern Poverty Law Center arrested on fraud charges. That's the lady there. It says a former employee of the SPLC has been arrested in California on charges that she oversaw secret payments to informants inside of white supremacist groups. Interesting. One of whom she was allegedly living with and had a romantic relationship with at the time. She hated racists so much she actually hate fucked one of them. That's the most that you can despise racism, is to want to completely destroy them physically in bed. What the hell is this? Get out of here, sparkling water. This is the problem with going on the internet now, by the way. It's like I'm walking through Tokyo with billboards just popping up every time I walk down the street at night. Good God. Who wants that? The woman, Heidi Beirich, previously ran their projects tracking hate groups in the U.S. The Justice Department has alleged that the program, which is no longer running, defrauded donors who did not realize they were helping to pay individuals inside the same groups that the SPLC aimed to root out. She basically oversaw payments of donors' money to people inside of these hate groups, according to an indictment unsealed Wednesday. She also allegedly shared a bank account with one of those sources, which included funds from the SPLC's payments. I believe she was part of the effort to open bank accounts in completely fictitious companies' names and make payments to individuals for reasons that were not accurate as described, Attorney General Todd Blanche said at a news conference Wednesday. This is exactly what we said would happen in a case like this, which is that our investigators and the U.S. attorneys and the agents working the case can keep on working it even after the initial indictment. So just reiterating there that they are going to push for actual charges. It's not just an indictment to create a news story, right? Wire fraud conspiracy, conspiracy to submit false statements to a federally insured bank, and conspiracy to conceal money laundering for hate groups, to prop up the same hate groups that they were saying they were condemning, right? So, again, this is just one example of an actual, and we know that there are tons of these NGOs that the Democrats were funding that were somehow funneling money to various propped up organizations, protests. If you look at back over the course of the last 8 years, and something looks like it's a little too staged to be true, it probably was. And now you can see the actual paper trail to some of these things. So a really important moment. And I hope that we hear more about this. What were the actual payments for? She's saying, I think they're alleging that basically they were paying informants to get more information about the hate groups. But it muddies the waters a bit that she was sleeping with one of them, first of all. And I would definitely not be surprised if they were organizing these events, these rallies, transportation to them, and really making sure that they happened and got widely distributed on film and through the news media. All right. That is about it for tonight, I think. I got to get running and some stand-up comedy to do. So it's a little shorter one tonight, but I should be back tomorrow, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. More misinformation. I'll see